In one clip, Jenna Ellis described a conversation she had with Trump White House official Dan Scavino in December of 2020, who said Trump planned to refuse to leave despite losing the election.
He said the boss is not going to leave under any circumstances. We are just going to stay in power. And I said to him, well, it doesn't quite work that way, you realize. And he said, we don't care.
Meanwhile, Powell, a lawyer who was a key player in the effort, was reportedly questioned for 3 hours, claiming she frequently received calls from Trump asking for updates on the efforts to overturn the election, even though publicly Trump had tried to distance himself from her after that infamous press conference in late November 2020, where she made those baseless claims that voting machines had been hacked.
It can set and run an algorithm that probably ran all over the country to take a certain percentage of votes from President Trump and flip them to President Biden, which we might never have uncovered had the votes for President Trump not been so overwhelming in so many of these states that it broke the algorithm that had been plugged into the system.
Privately, Powell says Trump even discussed appointing her special counsel and that she believed that the former president wanted her to pursue actually seizing those voting machines.
I guess he assumed, and I would have thought that I would have looked at putting into effect a provision of 13848 that would have allowed the machines to be secured in 4 or 5 states.
How do you choose which states that you would target?
How would I have chosen that? By the ones where there were the most statistical anomalies.
Here's the thing. None of the recordings appear to directly implicate Trump. You could even argue that some might actually help his defense, which is part of why one of the lawyers may have leaked them. At one point in Powell's interview, she said Trump really believed he'd won.
All his instincts told him he had been defrauded, that the election was a big fraud.
On the 18th, the only real justification that he's giving you to why he's not bowing out is that his instincts tell him that he won.
That and the evidence that I'd showed him.
Joining me now is Darryl Cohen. He's a former assistant district attorney right there in Fulton County, Georgia, where this case is taking place. Thanks very much for coming on. Appreciate it. A lawyer admitting that he leaked this to the media. I have rarely heard a lawyer fess up so quickly. Why do you think that happened?
Well, to start with, I'm so disappointed that he leaked it because he had an obligation, an ethical and professional obligation not to do it. Having said that, why did he admit it? Because if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. And at some point in time, if he had not admitted it, it would have filtered down to him and whoever else, if anybody else, was leaking it. So he told the truth. If you have a problem, always let it come out first. And then later you can say, hey, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it, but at least you got it out. You don't have to conceal it.
Let me play a piece of sound. This is the lawyer sort of trying to offer an explanation here for why he did it. This is Jonathan Miller, number one.
This is a very, very public trial. We all know that. How many newspaper organizations are out there right now looking at it? That allows the DA's office to set the tone for the entire trial without giving consideration to the other side of the coin. And that's what needs protecting, Judge. And the public has a right to know.
What do you make of that?
I don't like it. I agree that the public has a right to know, but there are bounds and ethics that he has to go through, and all of us as lawyers have to deal with. So the fact that he leaked it, I disagree with it. The fact that he told the truth and came out with it, that I did it, I appreciate that. And I think that he cut off any possible further problems that he may have as a result of leaking.
Right. I mean, he could have had serious bar association problems, et cetera, if he ended up lying about the leak, right?
Nothing other than being indicted for perjury and losing his bar license and maybe being incarcerated. That's about it.
So who do you think that these videos help? Do you think that the videos help the defense?
No, Dan, I think that they didn't help the defense, nor did they help the prosecution. They brought out the public who knows even more about what they thought they knew more about in the in the past. In other words, to me, it's much ado about nothing. When the trial actually takes place, if it takes place, these interviews will be paramount as part of the trial. But a jury, male or female, pro or con, they're going to listen to the evidence or the lack of evidence and hopefully make a decision based upon that and nothing more and nothing less.
I couldn't believe that the lawyer just came forward. I thought they were going to have a sort of useless hearing where everyone's going to say, oh, in fact, the lawyer comes up and says, yeah, hey, by the way, I'm the one who leaked it, on me. And again, there was nothing that prevented him at that time from doing it, which is why the judge, I guess, has issued this order. Real quick, thoughts on this order?
It makes no sense to me. It's a protective order. The public thinks of a protective order protecting a person from another person. Here, we're protecting the rest of the world from knowing what the discovery is until the trial.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.